dashed line options and arrowheads. Many things that we can do in Adobe Illustrator with just lines, dashes, and arrowheads. Let's make a straight line. I'm not finding my straight line tool, so it went somewhere. So I'm going to click these three little arrows down here, and here is the straight line tool. Oh, it's down here. That's interesting. Okay, so the straight line tool may already be showing up. And what we're going to do now, you can use with any path. Let's see, let's move this over here. And for now, I'm just going to make a straight line. And to work with dashes, it really helps if you can see your stroke panel. And by default, my stroke panel opens like this, says stroke, weight, and of course, with the stroke selected, I can increase the stroke width. My stroke may look a little different than your stroke. But if I double click the stroke panel, notice here, now I can see all my stroke panel options. And now I can play with how the line starts and ends. That would be with this little cap thingy. Corners like this, corners like that, corners like that. Now this is an interesting option right here. This isn't going to do anything for us right now. We'll leave that alone for right now, but let's talk about that. I'm going to move this object up here, and let's go down to the rectangle tool and do this. Now, I find this to be very interesting. I get the black arrow tool, my rectangle or square is selected, and this align stroke. By default, the stroke is right in the middle of the path, or the path is right in the middle of the stroke, however you want to say that. But watch when I click this one. Now my stroke is inside of the path, and over here, my stroke is outside of the path. Very interesting on how you might use that. But we're here to talk about dashed lines. And let me say this, I've said it in other videos, but if I click away, well, first of all, if I click on this thing and scale it up, let me take it back to default alignment. If I scale this thing, my stroke is scaling. See if that happens for you. If your stroke is not scaling, what you want to do is deselect everything. Look in the Properties panel. If you can't see the Properties panel, just go Windows, Properties. There you go. And notice this option right here, Scale, Strokes, and Effects. By default, that is turned off. I don't understand why by default that is turned off, but if I turn it off and select my object and scale it, look at what happens to the stroke. The stroke, I mean, doesn't it make sense that you would want to scale the stroke? I guess there are people that don't want to. But if I turn that on, I think I chose a bad time to do that. Now it's going to be really big. So I'm just going to delete that sucker. And now notice my stroke is set to like 1,000 million. So let me go in here and just change that point size to about 12 so we can see it very good. And let's get our rectangle back. There you go. So now now before we do that, let's start playing with this line first. If I select dashed line, by default, I think this is going to be a 12 right here, and there may be a 5 over here. I've set mine to 60. So I'm telling Illustrator right now that I want my dash to be 12 points wide with a 60 point space between them. Now, let's say I want to make this, my dashes, 5 points. Now they're skinnier. Maybe I want to decrease the dash space. Maybe I take that down to 30 points. There you go. There you go. So you can play with the dash and the gap. And then there are arrowheads. And notice I have the rounded corners up here, and I could change that to this or to that. It's whatever you would like. But the arrowhead function is a lot of fun also. I can add arrowheads to both sides. And you have a fair amount of options to work with. Now, if you create an arrow, let's take this back to the default. If you make an arrow, well, perhaps you get your dashes in there, and you like your arrow, but you want to change its color. Notice that this is stroke color. Right now we're working with stroke color. But if I wanted to change the color of my arrow, of course I could just create a new arrowhead by hand. But if I if I expand the appearance of my line, and once I expand appearance, then I have to ungroup like 50 gazillion times. 2 times, it's not so bad. Then if I select my arrowhead, notice it's no longer stroke color, but it's fill color. And then I can change fill color, bring in my stroke, and set the stroke to anything that I would like. Give it rounded corners. And maybe I'll give that dashes. Okay? So, I mean, that's all I really have to say about dashed lines, arrowheads, gaps, and corners.